to Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and oh my God, do we have some football to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen? The season is over! We did it. We made it. We absolutely made it, and I could not be more excited to talk about Week 17 and the season as a whole on this morning's episode. It's gonna be a good one. I've got 56 takes to talk about today, so buckle up, take out your coffee mugs, and get ready for a good show. Good morning to everyone here in the chat. Happy to see you as always. Our fearless producer Dustin is back from battling the plague. Donald, the Freak, Happy Hudson, Jeff, All City, and plenty more. And if you're listening to the episode as well, thank you so much for listening. The podcast, again, can be found via the link in the description. Guys, we've been doing this. I mean, seriously, Week 17 is behind us. The fantasy season is over, and I have no clue what to do with myself. Says the wrong date on the overlay. Oops. But seriously, it's the end of not only is it the end of the fantasy season, it's also the end of 2024. And I really just wanted to go out with a bang. We have to end this season on a high note, just like we were treated to last night on Monday Night Football. So before we get into it, though, I do want to announce our champions because, guys, it's over. It's over. And we have some champions in the invitational leagues that, of course, I organize. We're going to start with the Trade Gods League. The Trade Gods League, of course, we're here listening to Wake and Take, but Trade Gods was the very first invitational I had to take part of. Started that, of course, with Matty Kiwu, my Trade God brethren. And the year 2 champion is none other than Tyler Football, the producer of Top 10 Takeaways, my Twitter assistant. You've seen him doing all these best ball drafts. Tyler Knably, the man himself, took down the Trade Gods League. Fantastic work by him, made a ton of great trades in the Trade Gods League, of course. And really, he kind of locked it down mid-season, really. We all kind of were like, let's just wrap it up. And he finished the year strong, and that's what it takes. So shout out to Tyler Football. Our Wake and Take Best Ball Leagues. Our Best Ball 1 champion was Tough Love. So congratulations to Tough Love, taking home the first place prize in the Wake and Take Best Ball League. Best Ball 1. And Best Ball 2's champion is none other than Green 182. So congratulations to you as well, Green 182. I have to say, you were actually going up against our fearless producer, Dustin. And Dustin, sorry for reminding you, but he texted me last night. He was like, literally, if George Kittle gets one more catch, I lose. And yeah, sure enough, it was 0.5 Dustin was winning by. And it was 49ers last drive. Started off so well, too. George Kittle wasn't even in the formation that the 49ers were running. But then Brian Branch pulled off that Brock Purdy sack. They put in Josh Dobbs. George Kittle had to go in as extra hands for blocking. Sneaks away for one catch and unfortunately beats Dustin. But a fantastic, a heart-stopping fantasy championship. So congratulations to Green 182. And finally, the Wake and Take Dynasty League, the 32-team monstrosity of a league that had so many things go wrong, but also so many things go right. Our champion is none other than the Hairy Snowman, friend of the show, popped on a couple times here. You always see him here in the chat. So congratulations to the Hairy Snowman. Made such a great season, really put it together, made some moves in the playoffs as well to lock down. He traded me for Brian Robinson and just drafted a really good team in general. So shout out to the Hairy Snowman. And all the other winners of the invitational leagues, Tyler Knably, Tyler Football, Hairy Snowman, Tough Love, and Green 182. Shout out to you. What a season. What a fantasy season. Now, we've got some takes. We do have some takes, but we can't get into a 56 take episode without an ad break. Sorry to break it to you. We do have to do an ad break before I get lost in the sauce. So we are just going to tell you guys a little bit about what's going on over at Fast Draft.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith and Jigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him, draft him, draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests and our best ball contest for 2025 coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Definitely go check out Fast Draft. You can still play DFS even if the fantasy season is over. You can also use promo code JASON. That'll get you a first deposit match up to $25, which will get you 5 entries into the Week 18 DFS contest. They have also launched the playoff best ball contest, the playoff Super Slam. Just pick 6 players, see how they do in the playoffs. Could be any 6 players except for quarterbacks, flex players. And it's a really good format, really, really fun. So highly recommend checking out Fast Draft and using promo code JASON. Now, I see a lot of comments here before we get too far into it. Paul says, my heavens, you are charged today, and I just want to make it known on public. This is my second cup of Joe. We'll probably have another one after that. And I also highly recommend the natural substance, the St. John's wort. It's a little bit of a mood enhancer, a broadcaster's tip for any of you who just wants a little extra pump of energy for, perhaps an end of season finale episode. God, I'm like, today. It feels great. It feels great. Yeah, Jeff, you have to get your 10 pumps of coffee to get to my level. And Henry, I do want to tell you to stick around the show. We're having all sorts of advice here. We're not just victory lapping the championships. Second place is not too bad. I know it stings to get second. I myself got second in an FFPC league last night. But we're going to have Week 17 takes. We're going to have Dynasty takes. We're going to have season-long takes. I got 56 takes on the show sheet. Ask Dustin. He's looked at this Google Doc. It's insane. I started putting it together yesterday morning, and I just continued putting it all throughout the afternoon, and I'm just so excited to get into it. So why don't we go ahead and get into it? We're going to start with reactions to the week itself. We'll start with reactions to the week itself, and I'm going in reverse order, at least at the beginning here, because I want to talk about last night's football game. There is no better way to end the fantasy season than what was put on the field in the San Francisco-Detroit Lions game. I mean, seriously, we had 300 yards and 3 touchdowns from Jared Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs had 117 yards and a rush touchdown. Jameson Williams got a rushing touchdown. Jameson Williams got a receiving touchdown. Sam Laporta got a receiving touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown got a receiving touchdown. Brock Purdy had 3 touchdowns. Joshua Dobbs even got a rushing touchdown in this game. Ricky Pearsall looked like a phenom. George Kittle did his thing with over 100 receiving yards. And even Deebo Samuel and Kyle Juszczyk found the damn end zone in this game. Just what a game. If any of you were looking towards Monday Night Football, crossing your fingers for one of your studs to really show up, chances are they did, because it was insane what was put on the field last night, especially from my guy, Jameson Williams, who we'll be talking about later in the show, because I love Jameson Williams. As you guys know, he has my heart. I'm the president of the Jameson Williams fan club. And to see him end the year and really just give it to the 49ers again after what he did to them in last year's NFC Championship, it was really just beautiful to watch. And I needed Jameson Williams to go for 20 points to get second place in my FFPC Dynasty League. And boy, did he do that. So he locked down a prize for me and the Harry Snowman. We actually run that team together. So Jameson Williams, I've got to give my claps to. I'm 100% going to talk about this guy later in the show as well when we get to the season takes. But in terms of Week 17, I really just got to say, what a way to end the fantasy season. It does not get any better than what was put on the field last night. Unless, of course, you want to talk about the most Atlanta Falcons loss ever. Some people may argue, 28-3, that has to be a really soft spot or a sore spot, really, for Falcons fans. And yes, that's true. That's probably still the most Atlanta Falcons loss of all time. But when you're talking about going up against Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders in Washington with your rookie quarterback, and you start off the way they did, going up 17-7 at half, and then Kyle Pitts remembering how to catch a football and getting a game-tying touchdown with just a minute left to make it 24-24 after choking the lead again. The Falcons choked a lead in this game. And then Michael Penix, ice in his veins, finds Kyle Pitts on 4th down with just a minute left to tie it up. And then They sold 2 timeouts, a minute left. They get a 3-and-out on the Commanders with 50 seconds left. Then they get the ball back and they get into field goal range, but Raheem Morris forgets that you can use timeouts. Just forgets that you can call a timeout and basically lets time expire. The refs even tried to save him. I will argue till the day I die that was not pass interference that was called. The Falcons shouldn't have any business even kicking that field goal. And the fact that they then missed it is just more salt in the wound. It is just such a Falcons game. Such a Falcons game, I may add, that Olamide Zaccheaus became Randy Moss mixed with Terrell Owens, mixed with Jerry Rice in this game. Like, who in the world thought that Olamide Zaccheaus could go 8 for 9, 85 yards at a touchdown? Almost had a second touchdown, actually, that was called back by a touchdown. Just a total Falcons collapse, ending their playoff hopes. I mean, there's no way the Buccaneers lose next week. Did you see them play? This was the season for the Falcons, and they had it. They were up 10 points. Then they tied it up. Then they had a chance for a game-winning field goal. And they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't close it down. They just couldn't because they're the Atlanta Falcons, and that's just what they do. That's just what they do. And we'll have a bunch of other takes like that in the show. Some teams are just destined to be themselves. The Falcons are one of them, unfortunately. And I did want to, take a step here and say, I hope this kind of, it's like, as we talked about when Kirk Cousins was benched, I didn't like the move. A lot of people out there really, really liked the move for entertainment purposes. I'll accept that. It is definitely more entertaining. But my case was just that it's not that much different, really. Like, Michael Penix has 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions in the 2 games that he's now played. Been fine. I'll say more entertaining than Kirk Cousins. He can actually throw the ball downfield. But he's overthrowing like crazy as well. Like, we are truly developing Michael Penix right now. And like I said, this is just not the time to do it. I don't care that Kirk Cousins was looking like a shell of himself. He still had just finally thrown his first touchdown pass in weeks, finally got a win, and was trending in the right direction, and then they pulled the plug. It didn't make sense to me. It did not make sense to me in terms of running a franchise and trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. Because Michael Penix, at the end of the day, is a rookie quarterback. I know he looked exciting, but again, Kirk Cousins probably would have done a lot of the same stuff, and you could argue that with me. I'm sure a lot of you think that Kirk Cousins was done, but as we talked about, there were a lot of metrics. I mean, he was still top 10 in a number of passing metrics, including passing yards and completion percentage. I mean, he was fine. He just couldn't get the touchdowns. But they benched him after he finally got a touchdown and was trending in the right direction. So I just personally don't get it. I really don't. But at least we have now learned that Michael Penix definitely is the truth. He definitely is the franchise quarterback in Atlanta. He is very exciting. He needs to work on those overthrows, but to see him get the reps, to see the ice in his veins in particular, that is definitely exciting stuff. I'm just still not sure if it was really the right move because now the season's over. Kirk Cousins is tarnished. Michael Penix didn't really get to build too much confidence, really. It's just it's just And that's kind of the thing. We'll have some other takeaways like that too, but it just seems to me that this was purely an entertainment decision and not necessarily a trying to make the playoffs decision. And, maybe the Falcons organization felt differently, but that's not how I felt or how I feel about this game and team right now. It's just how it is. And while we're on this game, Jaden Daniels, who, again, we'll talk about later some more, I just got to say, what a player. I made a very brave decision to bench Josh Allen for Jaden Daniels this week in my Guillotine League. Still lost the Guillotine League. It is what it is. I got second in that one. But Jaden Daniels, what a player. Seriously, what a player. He's locked down Rookie of the Year, clinched the playoffs in this one, first winning record in years, and finishes the day with 200 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 127 rush yards. He was the offense. He is the offense. And he's a true stud and dynasty quarterback phenom. I mean, forever, right? Like if you got him in your dynasty, you are over the moon. So those were 2 big games I really, really wanted to start the show talking about. But let's get into some actual takes now. We're going to rewind a bit to Christmas Day. Because on Christmas Day, Patrick Mahomes decided he remembered how to play football. He remembered how to be a good quarterback. He threw for over 300 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. And I also want to say he's finally unlocked these wide receivers as well. It's been kind of hit or miss. But over the last 3 weeks, Xavier Worthy in particular has been on fire. He has over 30 targets the last 3 weeks and 3 touchdowns. Seriously, he's been truly unlocked. And if you listen to Top 10 Takeaways yesterday, the Podfather talked about how Xavier Worthy's kind of sneakily catching up to Marvin Harrison Jr. in Dynasty. And I don't hate that take. I don't love it. But I don't hate that take either, because Xavier Worthy has looked awesome, and he's attached to Patrick Mahomes for probably the rest of his career. And to see these types of target shares for Xavier Worthy, it's truly, truly impressive, especially when you see the explosiveness and the performances that he's putting on the field. Just love what Xavier Worthy has been able to do to end the year. But also, Patrick Mahomes, why'd you wait so long? Like, why did you wait until the last couple weeks of the season to remember to play football? I will remember that. I will 100% remember that. I don't know if I can actually trust Patrick Mahomes in fantasy anymore, but I will still take a chance on these wide receivers, because it's not just Xavier Worthy. We've seen Hollywood Brown now in these last 2 games fit in very, very nicely. He had 7 targets on Christmas, 8 targets the week before, only 40 yards in both of them and no touchdowns. But to see this type of usage is really, really important. And it's not even just the targets that he's getting, it's what he's doing for the rest of the offense, right? You know, him running these routes is just spacing out the field for Xavier Worthy, for Travis Kelce, for Noah Gray, for Hollywood Brown himself, because of Patrick Mahomes' cannon for an arm. So this offense really is coming together at the right time. Still don't think they're going to make the Super Bowl. Not sure who it's going to be in the AFC. Fingers crossed, still hoping for the Bengals, right? We're still hoping the Bengals can make the playoffs. That's been a take of ours all season, is that the Bengals would sneak into the final wild card spot and win the Super Bowl. My crazy hot playoff take is that on the Bengals. Still possible. Unlikely. Does come down to Carson Wentz and the Chiefs. If they can beat the Broncos this week and the Bengals could win, they will make the playoffs. But either way, shout out Patrick Mahomes for remembering how to play football when it matters most. Shout out for unlocking these wide receivers. Very, very excited for them next year. I guarantee that Hollywood Brown will re-sign with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm, planting that right now. And him and Xavier Worthy will be worth their ADP. And we'll remember that Rashee Rice comes back next season as well after his suspension. So things really are looking up in Kansas City. And it's very, very exciting stuff. We may not be drafting Patrick Mahomes next year, but we will be drafting Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. And probably Rashee Rice, as I'm sure he will come at a discount. And speaking of Patrick Mahomes being disappointing, Patrick Mahomes was very disappointing this season, except for the last couple weeks. CJ Stroud, however, I think I'm going to go ahead and crown him as the most disappointing player of the year. As you guys know, I was one of those losers, those stupid fellas that really got excited about CJ Stroud. I crowned him my Dynasty Quarterback 1. I took him in the Wake and Take Dynasty League. I took him in one of the best ball Wake and Take leagues. I was getting CJ Stroud everywhere. So excited for year 2. They added Stephon Diggs, for God's sake. I mean, how could he do worse with better weapons? Well, I guess injuries, bad offensive line, and then maybe the fact that maybe the offensive coordinator wasn't as good as we thought. He finishes the year with 3,677 pass yards, which is not too terrible. That's 10th in the league, but finishes with 19 touchdowns, which is only 14th, and the 24th best QBR. And in this game in particular, the fantasy championship just absolutely lays a dump on the field that affects not only him, but Nico Collins as well. 17 of 31, 185 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. Nico Collins in the most important game of the year, only 3 receptions for 59 yards in a game without Tank Dell. John Mechie had more receptions than him. Just supremely disappointing, not only for the Week 17 performance, but really the whole season. We'll talk about CJ Stroud more later, but right now, I can't believe how disappointing he was. I really can't. I know he had these wide receiver injuries, but I really don't think that's a good enough excuse. I hope that this is just simply a sophomore slump and he can bounce back next year. But man, was that hard to watch this year. Man. No good segue here. But you're probably wondering if I still stand Kenneth Walker. Because Zach Charbonnet, he ended the year strong. Kenneth Walker got hurt at all the wrong times. And you're probably like, Jason, you're the president. I'm a president of too many fan clubs, but I'm also the president of the Kenneth Walker fan club. And you're probably wondering if I'm still the president of the Kenneth Walker fan club. So let me think about that. Of course, I'm still the president of the Kenneth Walker fan club. I love Kenneth Walker. I don't care that he didn't play. I don't care. Because if we look at Zach Charbonnet, I know he had that one, we could say two, but one amazing game, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns and 59 receiving yards against the Arizona Cardinals. But this week, only 15 carries for 57 yards, 3 receptions for 19 yards. The 2 weeks before that, 8 carries for 54 yards. He did get the touchdown, but just like fine. He's just fine. And if you remember, week 16 against the Vikings, Kenneth Walker did come back. He did come back, and in that game, Zach Charbonnet only had 1 carry. And that just shows, again, the whole thesis this season of getting Kenneth Walker was that here's Zach Charbonnet and here's Kenneth Walker. See, I can't even put Kenneth Walker's scale on the camera. It's too tall. He breaks the camera. Kenneth Walker's that good. He's a dog. And I understand that we have the health concerns, but you also have to remember just how good he is and what we've seen from him. He finished 12th in points per game this year, basically just as a pure runner, right? 16.5 points per game. And the 2 years before that, he had over 1,000 yards. The Seahawks offense is going to get better over time. And Kenneth Walker truly has one of the best profiles in the NFL. So I will not be giving up on him. I still stand K9. Kenneth Walker will not give up on him. And a player that I gave up on, truly, and prove me wrong, is J.K. Dobbins. As you guys know, I was a big Kamani Vidal guy. Really pounded the table for him. It kind of lined up for him to have an opportunity, and he just never really seized it. But J.K. Dobbins seized his opportunity and then some. He finishes week 17 after, being injured, misses a month, comes back, has 19 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown, catches a pass as well, and looks like nothing had stopped him. And I know that he did get injured, but he only missed 4 games, and then to return this well in the biggest game of our fantasy season and play that well, J.K. Dobbins deserves his flowers, and I am just, I would say, disappointed in myself maybe for just fading him just purely for health concerns, because we do know that he has an athletic profile. Now, I still will maintain, if you watch him play, he definitely loses some steam, to put it lightly. He's definitely still not 100%, nor will he ever be. But still, J.K. Dobbins at 70% is still better than a lot of running backs in the league. So to see him do this in this system on a discount deal, I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in Los Angeles next year on another discount doing something similar. So just shout out to J.K. Dobbins. I know he did get injured, but it wasn't like a season-ending one like we were really expecting. And even when he did go down, or when he went down, the running game severely suffered. Gus Edwards was ass. And Kamani Vidal, I think he should have been given more opportunity. I think ultimately that is what held Vidal back, as they just kept giving the rock to Gus Edwards instead of seeing what they had in Vidal. But still, they suffered in the run game without J.K. Dobbins. So again, Dobbins deserves his flowers. What a year for him. And shout out to him for bouncing back in week 17 and getting us double-digit fantasy points out of nowhere. Shout out J.K. Dobbins. And what happened to Ramondre Stevenson? 20 minutes before the game, it's announced that Antonio Gibson is going to be the starting running back. And then Ramondre Stevenson finishes with 2 carries for 1 yard. Antonio Gibson, for that matter, 12 carries for 63 yards. It's strange. I don't know what happened. There's not much information out there about what happened. And I have to ask, is this just the nail in the coffin for Ramondre Stevenson? Is this rest in peace Ramondre Stevenson? And I think it's no. I don't think so. They did just extend him. It's just a weird move. He's still under contract really through 2028, but they do have an out after 2026, which I'm sure is probably the path that they'll take. But he's still under contract at least 2 more seasons. And I can't imagine that they would just not give him the ball. So I'm not really sure what this is, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's just them trying to see what they have in Antonio Gibson, if they maybe want to re-sign him to be the RB2 again next year, or if they really if something happened behind the scenes with Ramondre Stevenson. I am very curious what happened there. Only 2 touches in the fantasy championship. Where'd that come from? And to announce it 20 minutes before kickoff? What the hell, Patriots? What the hell? So again, not really sure what happened here, because he earned that extension. He was having a pretty decent year. He's had multiple 20-point games this year, has handled the load very efficiently. Honestly, just a confusing one. Not really sure what happened, to be honest. So Ramondre Stevenson, though, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Of course, he's still under contract for the next 2 years, still playing well. Just this game in particular, completely erased, and they used Antonio Gibson. Again, we'll see. The Patriots, obviously they're not playing for anything, so maybe they already like what they've seen from Ramondre, but I just think it's a little odd because, they were still using like Drake May and everyone else. So I don't know. It's definitely something to keep your eye on. Another thing to always keep our eye on is the T. Higgins Bengals situation. This has been a rumor for like 3-4 seasons now that T. Higgins will not be a Cincinnati Bengal the next season, and somehow they find a way for him to be back on the team. But T. Higgins has ended the year super strong, and I want to shout him out for his fantasy championship performance. 11 receptions, 131 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 58 yards and a touchdown before that, 88 yards and a touchdown before that. Guy really came to life for the fantasy playoffs, and we have to commend him for that. Hopefully he's back in Cincinnati next year. We're not sure. Again, that's a situation that's always rumored to be happening, so it's something to keep our eye on for sure. But either way, shout out T. Higgins and shout out the Cincinnati Bengals for fighting all year. I really hope they make the playoffs. I really hope they make the playoffs. They're the most fun team to watch this year. I know that everyone likes the Bills and the Lions and everything. Ja'Marr Chase, Joe Burrow, that's amazing stuff. I hope they make the playoffs, and I hope they make the Super Bowl. What's going on with Cooper Kupp? What is going on with Cooper Kupp? Seriously, what is going on with Cooper Kupp? Because this was a guy I still believed in all offseason. Before the Puka Nacua injury, we were taking him when he was going in the 4th, 5th round. But still, start of the year super strong, looked fine. Really all year up until December 8th. He had 92 yards and a touchdown against the Bills. But then over the last 3 weeks, 9 targets over the last 3 weeks. You heard that right. A guy who normally gets 9 targets a game got 3 targets a game over the last 3 weeks. Only 4 receptions for 53 yards and 0 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. What's happening? What is happening with Cooper Kupp? I don't know. Because if you look at Puka Nacua is still crushing it. In that same 3-week span, he's had 25 receptions, over 200 yards. No touchdowns himself, but still getting all the usage, looking like a true alpha, and keeping Cooper Kupp from getting receptions. I don't know if they've just completely switched roles, if Cooper Kupp's lost it. But it's definitely concerning, especially if you look at the contract situation. This is kind of it. They have an out after this season. Now, he is under contract through 2026, but they have an out, and they could just take it. And it's kind of the same thing with Matthew Stafford. They have an out on Matthew Stafford's contract this year, too. So I think a lot is riding on this week. If they can make it into this playoffs, this might literally be a swan song for this Los Angeles Rams organization. We'll see. More than likely, I still think Matthew Stafford still has something left in the tank, and I still think Cooper Kupp has something left in the tank. But if they can make a deep playoff run, I wouldn't be surprised to see them just kind of hang up the cleats there and see what they could get. I don't know. Well, it's definitely something to monitor with both Stafford and Kupp having an out on their contract after this season. And to see Cooper Kupp getting old and being phased out so an offense could avoid having to pay him maybe, it's just concerning. And I really hate to see it, especially for those of us that started him in the championships. 1 reception for 29 yards against the Cardinals? How do they only put up 13 points? It's just strange. Just strange. So I'm probably rest in peace, Cooper Kupp, really. I am curious to see. We'll probably, draft him next year if he's super late, just because, I can't quit Cooper Kupp. But it really seems to be that the last 3 weeks really has kind of put a nail in the coffin for what we could expect for him, and has done the opposite for Puka Nacua and made him truly Puka Nacua is a supreme dynasty asset and a true stud. And I want to talk about the Cardinals too in this game, because while they only scored 9 points, somehow, they looked incredible. Kyler Murray finished the day with 300 yards. Trey McBride had 12 receptions for 123 yards and scored his first touchdown of the season. And Marvin Harrison Jr. had 96 receiving yards. This is what their attack should have looked like all season long. and it just hasn't. Not sure if it ever will. We need the touchdowns. But I don't know why they took so long to just feed Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. like this. To let Kyler Murray loose like this. 350 all-purpose yards for him and got a touchdown. Yeah, 2 interceptions, but who cares, right? The season's over anyway. Let him chuck it. So hopefully this has sparked something in the Cardinals. Hopefully they do realize, like, yeah, we do have some ballers. We'll talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. later. But Kyler Murray, he's still talented. I know he's small and struggles to see over the line. But he can still find these players and perform well. I mean, 48 pass attempts. Just give him that every time. Just give him that every time. Just put the ball in Kyler Murray's hand. It's not that difficult. Because he's got some serious weapons in Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr., and they just held them back really all season. So it's really cool to see them get unlocked in the championship here. Hopefully that lesson goes to next year. And a lesson we'll take into next year as well is Kendre Miller. He's just injury prone. Poor guy. Had the ACL out of college, and then since being in the NFL, he's had a hamstring strain, a bruised shoulder, an ankle sprain, another hamstring strain, and another hamstring total injury. Got concussed early in this game, and that's it, right? Like, it's just, he's just hurt all the time. And we'll always remember, you're injury prone until you're not. But he really, that's a lesson we have to remember, is this guy just gets hurt. He just does. It is what it is. They re-signed or extended Alvin Kamara, so he's still there next year. So Kendre Miller is still only going to be in handcuff land. But still, he is truly injury prone, and I'm very curious to see how the Saints attack their running back room at the end of the season or in the draft, because I think that Kendre Miller has kind of proven who he is, for worse, given his injury history. And real quick, I want to pat myself on the back, because I never fell for that Dan Spencer Rattler hype. I left the Senior Bowl, and I remember the rumblings from everyone in that crowd in the stands watching, just like, oh, Spencer Rattler's it. And I just kept having to rub my eyes. I was like, what are you guys talking about? Spencer Rattler? He's looked awful. This whole Senior Bowl, he's looked terrible. He didn't look good in college. Always disappointed in college even. Never lived up to his hype. And look, I'm telling you guys, he looked awful at the Senior Bowl. Go and watch my Senior Bowl takeaways episode. I never got it, but people were so in on him. There was times where people thought Spencer Rattler was going to take Derek Carr's job. And I was like, guys, stop. I was taking Carter Bradley over Spencer Rattler. That's how much I did not like Spencer Rattler after the Senior Bowl. So I just want to pat myself on the back for that, because that hype kind of got ridiculous. People were calling him a messiah, for God's sake. And it was just look at these game logs. Totally over the year in his 6 starts, 5.5 starts, 100 out of 186, 1,000 yards, a 55% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. A 36.8 QBR. It's almost like players just are what they are. He never showed anything in college. Didn't show anything at the Senior Bowl. He fell so far in the draft. Do you really think that NFL teams are going to pass up on a talented quarterback that long? No. He was not good. So remember that next year when we have a 4th round, 5th round quarterback rookie who's a backup to Sam Darnold or something, wherever Sam Darnold ends up. And we're yo, he's going to win the starting job. No, he's not. He was taken in those rounds for a reason. And he's bad. So I'm patting myself on the back for that one, because I'm telling you guys, that Spencer Rattler hype was ridiculous. Also on week 17, I have so many takes. I made too many takes. When we did our game picks episode, I had no reasoning. I was just the Giants are beating the Colts. I feel it in my gut. I can't explain why, but the Giants are beating the Colts. I even went so far to say, even if there was no neighbors, I just really felt it in my soul. This was before Anthony Richardson was even benched. I mean, I don't know what it was, what my gut was telling me, but man, was it right? True Lock? 300 yards and 4 touchdowns passing? And then a rushing touchdown? Drew Lock? What? Hilarious stuff in this game. Malik Neighbors, oh my God, 7 receptions, 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wan'Dale Robinson in the end zone. Darius Slayton in the end zone. What a game from the New York Giants. I can't believe it. It's like, I see Tyler here in the chat. It's like the Texans a few years back when Davis Mills decided to win games at the end of the year just to affect the draft order. Drew Lock's like, give me that contract. I'll be your franchise. They won't do it. But man, they maybe should, because what a game. Seriously, like what a performance. Granted, it was the Colts defense who have, not been good all year, but still very impressive to see. 17 of 23, 309 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. Again, Drew Lock. That's how you play quarterback. That's how you run an offense. And shout out Philadelphia Eagles for sticking true to themselves and knowing how to run an offense regardless of who the quarterback is. Kenny Pickett, 10 of 15, 143 yards and a touchdown. Gets hurt. So they have to put in Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee goes 3 of 4 for 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, career day, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown finds the end zone. Saquon Barkley, 167 yards rushing. These Eagles, they are getting hot at the right time. And to see them just absolutely stomp the Cowboys with Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee has to make the Detroit Lions shaking in their fur. Because I would be terrified having to play this team right now. Because Jalen Hurts is going to sit out another week. They're going to be rested as hell heading into the playoffs and ready to make some noise. So Detroit Lions, Philadelphia Eagles, that's going to be quite an NFC championship. Shout out Eagles for doing they thing. And I want to talk about the Panthers for doing they thing. Bryce Young, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen, 5 receptions, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Awesome fantasy performance for them in the championship. Now, of course, they lose the game and honestly don't even look that good. But I do want to shout out the Panthers and Dave Canales for building Bryce Young back up. We talked about it. He was broken. Frank Reich broke him. Truly broke him. Benched him, let him reset, gave him the confidence he needed, and let him ball out the rest of the season. Now, I do want to add, though, I'm very curious to see what they do without Adam Thielen because he's only getting older. And if you look at the game splits with Adam Thielen in the game, it's not that encouraging, to be honest with you. It's really, really not that encouraging. We could just look at the last 4 weeks, for example. Adam Thielen had 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, 43 yards and a touchdown, 5 receptions for 51 yards, and 102 yards against the Eagles. Those are the last 4 weeks. And the last 4 weeks for Bryce Young, pretty decent as well. 200 yards, 158 yards, 219 yards, 191 yards. Some touchdowns in there. But then just without him, he's just pretty poor. So I want to see what happens there. I think it'll be fine. I mean, the Panthers have a high enough draft pick to get a new wide receiver. But as we talked about after the Senior Bowl as well, Xavier Legette is not an alpha. Xavier Legette does not have the tools to be a wide receiver 1. He could be a pretty decent red zone threat, wide receiver 2, but they really do need a true alpha. And the fact that it's Adam Thielen at his ripe old age, it does give me some concern. I'm not going to lie. Because we saw Bryce Young struggle in the games that Adam Thielen were not playing. And I think that should give us some concerns. But we'll see. I do believe that Bryce Young has, unlocked himself and is ready to use everything he's built up to go forward and kind of reestablish himself as worth the number 1 pick. Maybe not the number 1 pick, but worth the first round draft capital, worth investing in him as the franchise quarterback. I do still think he's good and has the tools. But I am a little worried that it takes good weapons for him, which I know that is a fine excuse. for a lot of quarterbacks. But I like the quarterbacks that could do it without weapons. And that's, again, why I'm so disappointed in CJ Stroud, because he honestly had weapons and sucked. So the duality of man, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I mean, seriously, CJ Stroud kind of had a better year too or Bryce Young had a better year too than CJ Stroud. What's that about? What's that about? Football. Football. Football, football, football. Baker Mayfield knows how to play football. Wow. Wow. 359 yards and 5 touchdowns? Whew. In the fantasy championship? Baker Mayfield? 5 touchdowns? Wow. Wow. What a game. Mike Evans, 2 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan, 2 touchdowns. Bucky Irving, 100 yards rushing, 77 yards receiving. Buccaneers on fire, ready to make noise in the playoffs again. Like the Eagles, I'm sure the Lions are shaking in their fur thinking about potentially playing these Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they look amazing, just like they did in last year's playoffs. If you remember, they barely lost to the Lions. Barely. So this NFC playoff picture is quite interesting this year. Really the entire AFC or the NFL. But just got to shout out Baker Mayfield for a insane championship performance. And really just end of the year in general. I mean, in the semifinals, he had 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. In the quarterfinals, he had nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Finished the year as one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy, and you probably got him off the waiver wire. So we're going to crown a fantasy MVP later in the show. Baker Mayfield is definitely on that list. And we'll see if he wins it. Stick around. Stick around. And again, I would just want to shout out Jalen McMillan again because he's very important to this show in particular. We talk about all the time wide receivers on the waiver wire episode and why I generally avoid them and the ones that I'm okay taking a chance on. Jalen McMillan was one of them. And I talked about Jalen McMillan every waiver episode this season. Every single one. When people began to drop him, I said, no, you have to hold on to him. We've seen him perform, and this Buccaneers pass offense is incredible right now. You cannot drop Jalen McMillan. And for the people that listen to that, I am sure they are over the moon because he was a waiver wire darling, but specifically a playoffs darling. Over the last 4 weeks, he has 6 touchdowns. Do you understand what that means? 6 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. 2 in the championship, 1 last week, 1 the week before, and 2 in the week to get you into the fantasy playoffs if you needed that extra push, and I'm sure you did. He was a player that you could flex every single week, and I know you did because we talked about it consistently. So I just want to say, let's go, Jalen McMillan bag holders. That was excellent to watch. And it just shows you really have to remain vigilant and consistent in your takes. And the players that you pick up, you can't be wishy-washy. You picked up a player for a reason. And that reason was the ceiling. That's why I unfortunately never gave up on Jordan Whittington because he was awesome if an injury happened to Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. He was fine. He was like a handcuff wide receiver. And there are not many wide receivers like that on the waiver wire. Generally, it's like a Jalen Tolbert, who you just never feel great about, and Alec Pierce, who you just never feel great about. But Jalen McMillan, you always felt great about when you put him in your lineup, especially the last 4 weeks. And that's what it means when you pick up a wide receiver off the waiver wire. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for. And what we were looking for in this Browns game was, can anyone on this Browns offense do anything without Jameis Winston? Because that was the frustration. Why did the Browns bench Jameis Winston? I will never know. I will never know. Because as we laid out here, we made a plea to the Cleveland Browns before the benching. So we heard it, there were rumblings of it. And I just said to the Cleveland Browns organization, I don't care that Jameis Winston throws interceptions. Because what he does for the rest of the offense, and really, frankly, the rest of the team, even the defense played harder with him at the helm. It really lets you evaluate the rest of your roster in a way that you can't do with DTR. Because DTR is just simply not an NFL quarterback. But in this game, he got Jerry Jeudy the ball, and that is all we can ask for. 18 targets to Jerry Jeudy, 12 receptions, 94 receiving yards. Great performance from Jerry Jeudy, despite DTR, and that is incredibly encouraging heading into next season. I'm 100% shopping around for Jerry Jeudy in Dynasty right now, just in case, because I don't know what the Browns are going to be able to do this year. We'll talk about a little bit later about the Browns for sure. I have one more take about them as we get into the season-long takes. But Jerry Jeudy looks to be awesome, getting a ton of volume and doing a lot with it. He's invested in this team. And what I like about wide receivers in fantasy in general is I either want a really good team or a really bad team. I don't really want anything in between. And I think that the Browns are that kind of team. They are pretty terrible. And that's going to lead to lots of passing volume for Jerry Jeudy, whether or not it's garbage time, whether or not whoever quarterback is next year. I want to try to see what Jerry Jeudy costs. I know he's gotten a lot more expensive, but I also know he's in that weird realm of like people trying to sell high, but it's not quite selling high, as we don't know if he's really reached his ceiling yet. I think it's just simply buying and selling. And so I want to shop around. I want to see what he costs. And if he's like a second, a couple thirds, or like another wide receiver in his range, I probably should have pulled up Keep Trade Cut to see who's kind of in his range. But like a Quentin Johnston for a Jerry Jeudy, I think would be a very interesting move. Maybe someone older. I don't know, but very encouraging to see him do this with DTR. And I want to talk about that because it's very discouraging. Very discouraging. I'm not going to lie. I have a sour taste in my mouth from this Miami Dolphins offense without Tua. To see them be this bad without Tua really, really raises some alarms to me. Because to me, and really a lot of the fantasy community, we've talked about it, if you have good weapons and you're an athlete, you're a good player, you find a way. You find a way. Tyreek Hill finds a way. Tyreek Hill always finds a way. He's Tyreek Hill. But Devon Achane, in the games without Tua Tagovailoa this year, did not find a way. In fact, he was ass. He was terrible. Weeks 3 through 7, Tua Tagovailoa was gone. Against the Seahawks, Devon Achane had 8.8 fantasy points. Against the Titans, Devon Achane had 5.9 fantasy points. Against the Patriots, Devon Achane had 2.7 fantasy points. Against the Colts, he had 10.5 fantasy points, and it's not like he isn't getting volume in those games. 23 touches for 8.8 points against the Seahawks, 14 touches for 5.9 points against the Titans, and 17 touches for 10.5 points against the Colts. Again, I understand that no Tua is going to affect the touchdown equity, but the whole case for Devon Achane is he can take any carry and make it a home run, right? Like he can score a touchdown from anywhere on the field because he's explosive. But why is he not explosive with a backup quarterback? In fact, that should honestly be a time where you're more explosive. You know, the team is leaning on you. You're getting more carries. You're expected to play better and you play worse? A lot of it's going to be he doesn't get the receptions that he gets with Tua. But again, that's not necessarily what I'm hoping for a dynasty running back, especially that is that expensive. So I'm not going to lie. I'm starting to get wishy-washy on my Devon Achane love because I want to see these guys perform with or without their quarterback. I know this week in particular, they just kind of stopped using him, right? Like the season's over for the Dolphins, but still 10 carries for 25 yards before leaving, going wherever he went. So I'm just concerned. And I'm going to leave it at that. I would be shopping around Devon Achane if I had him. I think that there's a lot of different value out there. Even when the ceiling's there, I don't like that he can't do it without the quarterback when we have the concerns with Tua and his longevity. So I just want to say my alarms are raised that Devon Achane can't ball without Tua Tagovailoa. And that's where I'll leave it. And that's where I'll end the Week 17 takes. We've got a lot more to talk about, baby. We've got a lot more to talk about. But why don't we hear a little bit about the player profiler player rankings that were just incredible this year?
Oh, every week I'm answering these start-sit questions on Sunday morning. I go to the weekly rankings on playerprofiler.com just to make sure that my instincts are correct, and sometimes they're not. And guess what? More often than not, I go with the projections. You may not feel great about starting Daniel Jones or Wan'Dale Robinson, but the projections say, hey, that's the move. It may not feel right, but you use those projections to get it right. That's the power of the player profiler system. It's Evan Ringler, it's Bradley Stalder, it's Theo Greminger, of course, it's Billy Muzio making these rankings possible. The season rankings, so you know who to pick up, who to trade for. The dynasty rankings are part of this. The offensive line rankings from Dan Fornick, one of the best in the business. Then we get our cornerback rankings, which show which corners are matched up with which wide receivers. And now, in collaboration with the IDP show, we have IDP rankings. Did you know that? Did you? So go to playerprofiler.com, use promo code PODFATHER, get you 25% off the player rankings package right now at playerprofiler.com. Enjoy!
Definitely recommend Player Profiler. I know the season's over, but you can go ahead and get it for next year if you want, or, just sign up for the subscription, or just keep it front of mind, because Player Profiler's weekly rankings and season-long rankings and dynasty rankings and Scott Fishbowl rankings and FFPC rankings and Superflex rankings and tight end premium rankings and all the rankings, the best ball rankings, they're incredible. Incredible work going on at the Player Profiler data team. So cannot recommend getting those tools enough. Season reactions. I've got more of them. Told you to buckle up for quite an episode. So as we talked about earlier, I am, why did it take so long for Patrick Mahomes to get good again? And I just want to say, don't fall for this. Don't fall for this. I know that it was exciting that he's ended the year strong, but I think it's also important to note that this is just the Chiefs' identity. They don't care about our fantasy teams. They don't care about the regular season. They care about Super Bowls. And that was always kind of the case, right? Is that these Chiefs can just win. They don't need to be flashy. They can just win. They can coast through the season and put on better performances when it matters most. And I know that we're all going to convince ourselves that Patrick Mahomes is a top 3 quarterback again next year. And I'm just not going to fall for it. I'm officially done with Patrick Mahomes as my fantasy quarterback, especially when you look at the top 3 scorers this week. The top 3 quarterbacks were Joe Burrow, Drew Lock, and Baker Mayfield. Pocket passers you could have got much later. And I already know next year there's going to be another case of that, right? Maybe Caleb Williams. Maybe J.J. McCarthy. C.J. Stroud, maybe. Jordan Love. So I am just done. This is the Chiefs. They don't care about our fantasy team. And Patrick Mahomes is not a great fantasy quarterback. And I was honestly shocked. I looked, he finishes the QB 10. I was shocked. It did not feel like he finishes the QB 10, but even then, that's a huge disappointment from his ADP. And yeah, he ends up finishing the year. He's probably going to have over 4,000 passing. Actually, they'll bench him. So 3,900 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 6th in QBR. That's pretty good. But pretty good doesn't cut it for the cost that he is. And this is just how the Chiefs are going to play. If you get Patrick Mahomes, he may do well in the fantasy playoffs and the regular playoffs, but he's just going to hurt you in the regular season. And I'm done with it. Officially, no more Patrick Mahomes on my fantasy teams. And while we're here talking about quarterbacks, Dustin, you're going to love this take. The Steelers need to trade up in the draft and get themselves a quarterback, or truly pay up on the market. I'm just not sure who's on the market. But if I'm a Steelers fan, and Dustin tweeted this out too, I am just annoyed. This mid shit is so boring. Just so boring. I mean, how often can you just sneak into the playoffs, be competitive, and have a one-year exit, have a bad draft pick, and just continuously recycle that year in, year out? Like, how long can you really do that? I just think at some point they've got to look themselves in the face and say, we've got to go for broke. We need our franchise quarterback. We're never getting back into that elite status. Are you looking around the league right now? In their division itself, they've got Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and they really think that they're going to be able to compete with Russell Wilson? And I know that Russell Wilson started off strong, but I was honestly shocked. I go back through and look at the averages and check this out. Russell Wilson averages per game, finishes with a 6-4 record, 233 pass yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns, half an interception, 13.9 rush yards, 0.2 rushing touchdowns, and finished 22nd in QBR for the season. So what? Averaging right around 240 yards, 1.7 touchdowns, and half an interception a game. It's fine, I guess. So I was like, well, Justin Fields, what did he do? Finished with a 4-2 record. Not too bad. 184 passing yards a game, 0.5 passing touchdowns, 0.16 interceptions, 48 rush yards a game, and 0.8 rush touchdowns a game. So, roughly 230 yards a game, 1.3 touchdowns, and basically no turnovers a game. And I got to say, if I'm the Steelers, I would have still just rolled with Justin Fields. And I know that you're going to be like, Jason, can you please just give up on Justin Fields? And I'm just going to say, no, I can't, because I really do think he's shown more than enough promise. And as we talked about with the Falcons, entertainment should be your ultimate driving factor if it's close. And Russell Wilson is just nowhere near as entertaining as Justin Fields. And Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, for that matter, are nowhere near as entertaining as trading up in the draft to get themselves a rookie quarterback this year. And that's what I hope they do, because this Steelers team, not necessarily dead in the water, but not really going anywhere either. I will contend that if they run it back with Russ and or Justin Fields, or, it's not the end of the world. I would just say, again, they're going to finish right around mid and lose in the playoffs. But maybe, next year they decide it's Justin Fields and it's a little bit more exciting. Who really knows? But either way, they really need to find their franchise quarterback, whether it's this year's draft or a youngster on the market. I don't know. But at this point, I'm done with them. It's annoying. They kind of suck, to be honest. It's not fun to watch. And Russell Wilson is just fine at this point. And I will say that's it. I called him a true dust-washed quarterback all offseason. I really did think he was done. So he has impressed me. He's played a lot better than I thought he would. But they need a franchise quarterback at this point. I'm tired of this mid shit. It's boring. Boring. And another team that needs to get themselves a quarterback is the Seahawks. And you might call me crazy for this one, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to even do anything about this, especially if they do end up making the playoffs. But Geno Smith is just totally fine. But just not quite it. Just not quite it. And I know he finishes 4th in passing yards, actually, 4,097 passing yards. But only 19th in passing touchdowns, threw for 15 interceptions, and was 21st in QBR. And he did all of that with the 3rd most pass attempts. So he was slinging that thing. So of course he's going to have all the yards, but no touchdowns is just really concerning. And really it's just he's just not it. He's had his time. I'm glad to see this kind of resurgence. But if I'm the Seahawks, especially with a new coaching staff, I really have to ask myself how much longer I want him as my bridge quarterback. Now, if they make the playoffs, he's probably back another year, which is fine. I just really I want them, just like the Steelers, to really look themselves in the face and make the decision. Are they ready to commit to developing a franchise quarterback, or are they just going to kind of stay in quarterback purgatory with Geno Smith? And again, it's fine. It's exciting they've made the playoffs, but they're not a Super Bowl team. They're not really even a playoff team. They're just lucky the rest of the division also collapsed this year. So I would have, like we talked about in the offseason, I honestly would have tried Sam Howell a little bit more. Now, unfortunately for them, that might have been the plan, but they lucked themselves into the playoffs, so they weren't able to do that. But yeah, I don't know. Whether it's the draft or It's probably going to be the draft with Geno Smith, kind of like a Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix situation next year, if I had to guess. But I do like Geno Smith's time in Seattle needs to be over, and really his time kind of in the NFL. I hate to say that, but it's like at his age, I just think that NFL teams aren't really looking at him anymore like this. And he's just simply a bridge quarterback, which is fine. I'm just done with it. I'm done with it, and I think the Seahawks should be too. I want to talk about the Ravens. And I'll have a few takes kind of like this about different teams. But when we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens, and this is a lesson, you don't want the pass catchers. And there's just certain teams like that you don't want the pass catchers. And you may say to me, well, Jason, they ended up fine. Mark Andrews finished as the tight end 6, had 10.8 points per game. Zay Flowers finished as the wide receiver 22 with 12.6 points per game. Like, Jason, how could you say you don't want the Ravens pass catchers? Well, it's just when you look at Andrews, he had 5 games under 10 points. 2 of them, or 2 more games, were flat out 0. So 7 games under 10. Flowers, 5 games under 10 points, only 3 over 20. These are just best ball players. And when you're talking about a managed league, the only Ravens you want is really just Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, for that matter. But are we really going to talk ourselves into 32-year-old Derrick Henry? I don't know. So as we'll talk about with some other teams, sometimes it's just as much as you love the offense, as much as you love the team, you just want like the quarterback and the running back, really. Like the wide receivers, they're too hit or miss. For me, I hate just deciding between players that could have a good game or a bad game. I want my consistency, or just like a couple of these players that have the ceiling on a true like just passing team. There's just simply not enough passing volume in Baltimore to really take a chance on Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews at cost. Because we saw what happened to Mark Andrews drafters. They all dropped him, which we told them not to on this show. I was huge on not giving up on Mark Andrews because, remember, he got in a car crash before the season. So again, it's not worth the cost for the pass catchers in Baltimore. All you want is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And we will take that to the bank. We may take Devontae Walker in best ball next year, though. We may. Because, again, a lot of this is about cost. If you could get Zay Flowers as the wide receiver 30 and he finishes the wide receiver 22, we're happy about that. But really, he's like the wide receiver 20, and he doesn't even finish as the wide receiver 20. And most weeks, he finishes outside the top 20 wide receivers. Only some weeks, he has some spikes. And it's just, to me, I don't like those types of players. We talk about it all season. Not for me, not for the way I run my teams. And I'm going to remember that going forward. Drake May is the truth. Drake May is the truth. Since he took over, he's been the QB 13 in fantasy, averaged 16.8 points per game. He's finished the year. I guess he has another week, but he just has been fantastic. He's 9th in money throws. If we're going to look at some metrics here, which is just showing how accurate he is, he's 4th in pressured completion percentage, which shows that he can do well under pressure. His production premium, he's 6th in that. That's showing how much better he's doing in certain situations. And of course, he has the wheels as well, 5th amongst quarterbacks in rush yards per game. Drake May is the truth, and I cannot wait for the Patriots to draft him a wide receiver. The way it's looking like right now is they are the number 1 overall pick. I think they'll trade back to a team that wants a quarterback. They'll get a ton of draft capital and maybe someone on top. Like, imagine the Giants want a quarterback, but they wouldn't trade in Malik Neighbors. But there's maybe a team out there like we're going to tie in a take. We're just calling it here. Seattle Seahawks trade up to the number 1 pick with the New England Patriots. They give their 2025 first-round pick, their 2026 first-round pick, and DK Metcalf for this year's number 1 overall pick. And they get themselves Shadur Sanders probably, or whoever else ends up doing well. But that's my take now. The Seahawks trade DK Metcalf in a first or something for the number 1 overall pick. That's what we'd like to see, right? We want to see a team trade a wide receiver and a first-round pick to the Patriots, and then they can do whatever they want with their first-round pick. Or they could trade, to the Giants and just get one of the top wide receivers early. and some other draft capital. But either way, the Patriots are coming out of this draft with a wide receiver for Drake May. So get Drake May while you can, because he's the truth. And so is Bo Nix. Bo Nix is also the truth. And this was my take all season, right? Is all of these rookie quarterbacks would hit. The only one we haven't seen hit yet is J.J. McCarthy, which is, hopefully he hits. I think he will. I mean, we haven't seen a quarterback play bad in Minnesota, so I'm just going to go ahead and say bye, J.J. McCarthy. But Bo Nix is the truth as well. He finishes the year with 3,454 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, and only 12 interceptions. 25 passing touchdowns is tied for 8th in the league. And he also added 383 rush yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. An incredible season for him. He was top 10 in pass attempts, which was awesome. Fantasy points per game. It pressured throws, but he still was okay. 2nd in clean pocket accuracy rating, 3rd in red zone accuracy rating. Did well against man. Had, of course, the rushing prowess as well. Bo Nix is the truth. Really, all these rookie quarterbacks are. So shout out to them. I know Bo Nix isn't winning Offensive Rookie of the Year anymore, but still an incredible, incredible season for him. This is the first Broncos winning season since 2016. Can you believe it? It has taken that long for them to find themselves a quarterback in a winning season. They've finally done it. So shout out to Denver for getting right. And shout out Bo Nix for being the truth. Okay, so as I talk about, Lamar Jackson kind of being the only one you want on Baltimore, or as we talk about, maybe on the Chiefs, you don't want Patrick Mahomes, but we'll take the pass catchers. We'll take the pass catchers. They should be decent. Well, Josh Allen is kind of the anti-Patrick Mahomes, and similar to Lamar Jackson, he's the only player you want in Buffalo, really. He's just a cheat code. And arguably, you could say James Cook, but I'm just not sure. We'll see where his price settles. Because James Cook is very, very expensive right now as well. And I don't know. I just want Josh Allen. I just want Josh Allen. I got a fun take from Dustin. He's like saying, I would rather just win fantasy without Josh Allen. But if you've got Josh Allen, you pretty much win the league. And I just think that really does mean something. So Josh Allen, truly a cheat code, finishes the year as the QB2. 3,700 pass yards, 28 passing touchdowns, 2nd in QBR, added 531 rush yards, and 12 rushing touchdowns. And as we called heading into the season, I called this, right? I said the only Buffalo Bill you want is Josh Allen. He's the alpha. I said, don't get Dalton Kincaid. Don't get Keon Coleman. What's the point? If you want anyone, maybe Khalil Shakir, as he'll, just be good at PPR and he's cheap. But Josh Allen is the one you want. He's the QB2 in fantasy, averaged 24.1 points per game. And when we talk about his other weapons, the ones that we drafted, okay? The ones that we actually drafted. Because Khalil Shakir, again, he did well. He finished as a wide receiver 31, averaged 12 points per game. At cost, he was awesome. He was fine. But you know what I'm trying to say here. Because you look at the wide receiver, Keon Coleman. He was the first Bills wide receiver we took. He finished as the wide receiver 71. And only averaged 8.8 points per game. Dalton Kincaid finishes the tight end 26 and only averaged 7.8 points per game and had zero games over 15 points this year. So not even a best ball tight end. James Cook, though, RB9, 15.9 points per game. We take that. I just, again, want to see where his price settles before I say I for sure want James Cook. You definitely wanted him this year and last year. And you'll probably want him next year as well. I think he's pretty sweet. But as we saw in this week's game, they are starting to work Ray Davis in some more as well. So I would just say Josh Allen, he's the cheat code. He's the anti-Patrick Mahomes. And he's the one that you want on your fantasy team on the Bills. As teased earlier in the show, I have some takes about teams. And one of them was the Falcons. They're always going to be the Falcons. Just is what it is. That was the most Falcons game ever. And this was the most Falcons season ever, right? As I talked about heading into the season, the second Kirk Cousins was signed, I said on camera, I highly recommend finding this episode because I was pissed about the Kirk Cousins signing, said it was the most Atlanta Falcons thing ever. How could you pay a 36-year-old quarterback with 0 playoff wins coming off an Achilles tear that type of money? How? What are you really expecting? And then they compound it by taking a quarterback Top 10 in the draft, which actually I didn't hate. I just thought that Michael Penix you'd be able to get later, but I was fine with it. I did say in that video that if they are to invest in Kirk Cousins, they damn sure better draft a Michael Penix or somebody that they can develop behind Kirk Cousins, because I just didn't trust Kirk Cousins to last the whole season. And unfortunately, I even had too much faith in the Falcons. My take was that they would win the division, barely, and then lose immediately in the playoffs. But now they're not even making the playoffs. They made everyone think they would make the playoffs, got everyone's hopes up, and then totally collapsed and choked it at the end of the season, just like the Falcons always do. So this was a penultimate Falcons season, and hopefully this is kind of the end of the Falcons. Like, hopefully that this Commanders game just kills that curse, because I'm tired of those Falcons collapses. But another team that is just destined to suck, it's the New York Jets, guys. It's just the New York Jets. This is another one we talked about in the season. I unfortunately believed in Breece Hall, but I don't know if you want anyone on this offense. As we talk about, you either want really bad offenses or really good offenses, and not this mid team. And that's the Jets. They're not even like, they're just bad. They're not like horrible. They're just kind of bad and not fun to watch and not that exciting. And I just don't even know if I want Breece Hall anymore, because Breece Hall was supremely disappointing and crushed my soul this season. Garrett Wilson will never live up to the hype in this team, especially now he's saying he wants out if Aaron Rodgers is to be back. So then if he stays, Aaron Rodgers is not back next year. So what are we talking about that quarterback situation? I don't want a single New York Jet. I really don't, especially at cost. They're all way too expensive. People get way too excited about Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. And I'm officially, like Patrick Mahomes, I'm just done. I don't want Breece Hall anymore. I hate to say it, but he's still the keep trade cut RB5. He's still going to be a first-round draft pick next year, and I can't stomach it anymore. I really can't, because he wasn't even that explosive. He actually wasn't even that explosive. He finished 24th in evaded tackles, 43rd in juke rate, and 21st in explosive rating. 19th in breakaway runs, 42nd in true yards per carry. And yeah, he had all the opportunity in the world. He was 9th in weighted opportunity, 7th in snap share, 3rd in target share, 1st in routes run, 4th in receptions. But is that really what we want? And the answer to me is no. I don't want that. I don't want it anymore. I loved Breece Hall. I really did. The athletic profile is immaculate. The player's really good when he shows up. I mean, we got a 30-pointer from him, but at cost, I'm out on him and the entire New York Jets, because they are just destined to suck. They just are. No segue here. Brock Bowers. I have no segue, because he's the opposite of sucking. I mean, Brock Bowers, I'm giving him the applause sound effect. Where's it at? Where's the applause sound effect? Brock Bowers. Cheers to that. 108 receptions, 1,144 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's the best season by a rookie tight end ever. The most receiving yards and the most receptions by a rookie tight end in the rookie season. So shout out Brock Bowers. He is another player that we will keep in mind as we later crown the 2024 Fantasy MVP. But Brock Bowers absolutely crushed it. Have to give him his flowers. True fantasy darling. Because he finished top 3. We'll just say top 3. Targets, target share, air yards, slot snaps, routes run, deep targets, fantasy points per game, expected fantasy points per game, yards after the catch, receiving yards, receptions, yards per team pass attempt, juke rate, dominator rating, expected points added, best ball points added, and of course finished as the tight end 1 in total fantasy points. Brock M.F. Bowers. And I also briefly want to talk about what the Raiders should do at quarterback as well. Obviously, Aiden O'Connell's not the answer. Gardner Minshew was not the answer. This is another team I would love to see trade up for a rookie quarterback, or, get someone. Oh, God. Sam Darnold is a Las Vegas Raider, isn't he? Sam Darnold is totally a Las Vegas Raider. This thought just hit me. This isn't in the show sheet. Sam Darnold is going to the Raiders. Calling it now. I think that'll be good for Brock Bowers. But I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if Sam Darnold is the future. You know, if he's truly bounced back or if that's a Minnesota thing. We'll talk about that in a second. Because I want to talk about soul searching just a little bit more. You know, as we've talked about it with a few teams now, like they really need to look themselves in the face and figure out who they are. Something we all should do, by the way, New Year's Eve, look yourself in the face today and ask yourself who you want to be. Who are you as we go forward to 2025 next year? But another team that should also do some soul searching right now and for the rest of this offseason really is the Indianapolis Colts. Because they look so good with Joe Flacco at the helm. They really do. They look like a completely different team. And it's interesting because they look pretty solid with Anthony Richardson as well, you know, even if it's hit or miss. So I just want the Colts to really look themselves in the face and say, hey, who are we committing to? And if I'm the Indianapolis Colts, I'm committing to Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. I've got a really good rush attack. And Anthony Richardson has a cannon for an arm. And guess what? We have Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce who can stretch the field. So I think the Indianapolis Colts should trade Michael Pittman or just get rid of him, as clearly he does not mesh well with Anthony Richardson, and they work too hard to get him the ball, fitting a square into a circle hole. That's just not the answer for the Indianapolis Colts. They need to get rid of Michael Pittman, commit to a really heavy set. I'm talking Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, Kylan Granson, Alec Ogletree blocking with Jelani Woods also running some routes as he's an athletic tight end. Josh Downs, of course, giving some intermediate safety net stuff to Anthony Richardson. And then, of course, just Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce just running sprints. That's how this Colts offense needs to run. And I hope that they do it. Definitely keep your eye on Michael Pittman because the Colts really need to find themselves an identity. They were two different teams this year, and they need to choose one if they want to figure this out. Why was Brian Thomas Jr. so faded? I never got it. We talked about it a lot here. He was my, I guess, wide receiver 4, and I wish I was higher. But, you know, actually he was 5. Damn, I should have been higher. But it was for me, which is awful. Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, Xavier Worthy, and then Brian Thomas Jr., and then Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman. But I was taking Brian Thomas Jr. Like, I liked him a lot. I was drafting him, and I never understood the discrepancy between him and Malik Neighbors, to be completely honest with you. And that's because I never watched LSU football, so maybe I just didn't know. But when you look at the paper, right, best comparable DK Metcalf, 6'3", 210 pounds, runs a 4.33, 99th percentile catch radius, just had 17 receiving touchdowns in college. First-round draft pick, alpha potential in Jacksonville with a decent quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Why was he so faded? I mean, he was going like after Keon Coleman, after Ladd McConkey. And I didn't really get it. I really, really didn't. And this is why he finishes the year with 1,179 yards and 10 touchdowns. Ends the year super, super strong. 3 straight 20-plus point performances. With Mac McCorkle-Jones. Brian Thomas Jr. is a true alpha stud, top 10 dynasty wide receiver. And frankly, I think belongs in that Malik Neighbors tier at this point. Because, I mean, they were teammates. I think this is Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase all over again. And he's a total stud. And the Jaguars' offense is only going to get better. So really shout out Brian Thomas Jr. Tennessee Titans. As I've talked about rookie quarterbacks a few times, I think the Tennessee Titans are also a great place for a rookie quarterback. Not a bridge. Not a bridge quarterback. They need a rookie. If I hear the Titans get, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to punch someone in the face. They need a rookie quarterback. Or just honestly give it back to Will Levis. Like, I want to see them develop someone. The answer is not Will Levis. They need a rookie quarterback. But they finished the year 9th in protection rate, so the offensive line's not too bad. As we know, they invested in J.C. Latham. Calvin Ridley's under contract next year. Tony Pollard's under contract next year. Chikakonkwo ended the year super strong. Tyjae Spears ended the year super strong. The defense was actually really stingy. Very stingy defense. So honestly, all the pieces are there in Tennessee for a rookie quarterback to go in and be developed. Not saying they'll win a lot of games or be great in year one, but that's the true path for the Tennessee Titans. That's what they're longing and needing. They can likely even make this better. No, they have a top 8 draft pick right now. Get a quarterback round 1, wide receiver round 2 or 3 maybe, depending on how you want to attack it. Because you have Calvin Ridley out wide at wide receiver 1 right now. You don't necessarily need a true alpha. You just need someone like a Ladd McConkey, just in the slot or just as a wide receiver 2 to pick up the pieces. So I really like the Tennessee Titans' potential. I think I was a year too early on them. As you guys remember, I was really attacking them this year. I really was. Tony Pollard especially, but even Will Levis. Will Levis was my late round QB, and God, really believed in him. Really did. But again, I think the pieces are all there. I think Callahan's fine. I think Brian Callahan is fine. I know that this wasn't a great year for him, but I really think it was just Will Levis. I mean, because we saw Mason Rudolph. I mean, he was pretty decent. And I think that again, lends some credence to the fact that a rookie quarterback would probably do pretty decent here. So that's what I want to see the Titans do. Oh, no, they may trade Calvin Ridley and their first to the Patriots for the 101. Because remember, we had the Calvin Ridley Patriots rumors for a minute there. Interesting one to watch. I'm very curious to see who the Patriots trade with. Anyway. I want to shout out Malik Neighbors. 104 receptions, 1140 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns with Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones, Tim Boyle. So shout out Malik Neighbors for another incredible season and for being a baller. Both him and Brian Thomas Jr. are incredible, and we should have just accepted that. I'm not sure why we didn't just accept that, but we did, unfortunately. And those who took Brian Thomas Jr. were big winners, and those who took Malik Neighbors were also big winners. Shout out Malik Neighbors. Another team that just destined to suck, we talked about it slightly earlier when talking about Jerry Jeudy, is the Cleveland Browns. And sorry, Jamie, I know you're probably in the chat somewhere, but the Browns are just destined to suck. Again, I'm not sure why they benched Jameis Winston. It'll never make sense to me. I'm not sure why they spent so much money on Deshaun Watson. And I'm honestly not so sure why they're sticking with this coaching staff. To be completely honest with you, I really think they need to blow up this organization completely. General manager, coaches, players, get rid of it all. I don't want to see Nick Chubb in the uniform next year. I don't want to see Myles Garrett in the uniform next year. I don't want to see a single person, maybe except Jerry Jeudy, on this team next year. We can keep Myles Garrett. That was a bit too far. They could keep Myles Garrett. But they really do need to blow this organization up. Because like the Colts, they need to figure out their identity as well. Because they've been good when they lean on Nick Chubb. They've been amazing when they lean on Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston. So maybe they really just need a gunslinger back there. But as things stand, they're like the Colts, 2 different teams. They need to build one team. And it does start. They did restructure Deshaun Watson's contract. I don't understand the cap wizardry. I don't pretend to be a cap wizard. I don't get it. I don't think it's real. But the too long didn't read, based on the article I read, is that they added a dummy year into his contract, converted some stuff to a signing bonus, and that in 2026, if they are to release them, they can actually clear some cap, which was not the case before. It also seems that this contract may be one that they could offload to another team in a trade for almost nothing, just because of that ability to clear cap in 2026. It really is just a 1-year rental for someone. So it's either they're setting themselves up for 1 more year of Deshaun Watson, or they're going to pay some dead cap, or they're going to move him to somewhere else. And we'll see him be a cap casualty in 2026. But either way, the Browns need to commit to one thing. If it's Deshaun Watson, then they better get, I don't know what they need. Actually, Deshaun Watson's pretty bad. So hopefully they don't commit to Deshaun Watson. But something's telling me the Cleveland Browns will commit to Deshaun Watson because, unfortunately, they're just destined to suck. They're just one of those teams that will always be bad. But, there are some good signs out there, right? There are teams and players that seemed that they were always going to be bad that bounced back, and that's Sam Darnold. I have to shout out Sam Darnold. $4,153 pass yards, third in the league. 35 passing touchdowns, fourth in the league. Only 2 losses. Wow. Shout out Sam Darnold. And congratulations to him for earning a contract with another team next year because J.J. McCarthy is still the starter. I've seen a lot of people out there saying, Sam Darnold's done enough. The Vikings are going to want to keep him now. It's already been written. They spent the draft capital on J.J. McCarthy. They're not just going to keep benching him for Sam Darnold. This coaching staff is confident in themselves. The front office is confident in the coaching staff. And while they maybe are excited and thrilled from what they got from Sam Darnold, I think that they may believe in the coaching staff enough to just say, I think J.J. McCarthy could do just as well. And I would agree. I think that J.J. McCarthy will be good. I was very disappointed to see his injury. He was another quarterback I took a lot at the end of drafts before his injury. Michigan fan, but he's got that winning DNA. And we remember the camp stuff. Him and Sam Darnold really were going toe-to-toe. He is a good quarterback, and I think he's going to be awesome in this system. And I think that Sam Darnold, and know that Sam Darnold will not be a Minnesota Viking next year. He's going to be a Vegas Raider. Because, again, the Vikings believe in their coaching. And I think both parties here, right, the Vikings and Sam Darnold, both believe they deserve another chance. But they're not going to J.J. McCarthy's playing next year. He is. I know it's crazy. But it's happening. And that's just the way the NFL works. It's like the Falcons, right? When it's close, you go with the entertaining option. And I still think that J.J. McCarthy is just as close to Sam Darnold and has the higher ceiling at the end of the day to where they will go with the entertaining option. And that's J.J. McCarthy. So Sam Darnold, shout out to you for an incredible season. I'm excited to see you in the black and silver next year. Earlier, I talked about how Josh Allen is the only player you want in Buffalo, except for arguably the running back. That's always going to be the case, right? Like on good offenses, you want the running back. Jordan Love is the pocket passing version of Josh Allen. You only want him in Green Bay. Again, these Packers wide receivers are just too hit or miss, and there's no true alpha safety net. I will contend they might add one in the draft this year. I would not be surprised if the Packers drafted someone in the first round this year. I think that there's a really big chance of that happening, especially with Christian Watson still proving he can't be healthy and Jaden Reed ending the year in such a down way. I think the Packers are definitely looking at wide receivers, so this is subject to change. But as of right now, I don't want Romeo Doubs. I don't want Christian Watson. And I don't want Jaden Reed. And I hate saying that because I love Christian Watson. But at this point, he's not startable. And neither is Doubs or Jaden Reed, really. Romeo Doubs finishes the wide receiver 52 with 10.2 points per game. Had 2 games over 19 points. Christian Watson finishes the wide receiver 72 with 7.5 points per game and only 1 game over 19 points. And then Jaden Reed, he was the one we liked, right? Wide receiver 26, 12 points per game, finished with 3 games over 19 points, but most of that was at the beginning of the year and just fell off as the year went on, and the other players got involved. And I see a Tucker Kraft comment in here as well. My guy, Rob. Tucker Kraft did nothing when the wide receivers were healthy. The only time Tucker Kraft did well was when either Romeo Doubs was hurt, Christian Watson was hurt, or both Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs was hurt. So there's just not enough room for consistency in this offense for me to take any of these Packers at cost. In best ball, I'll probably still take my Christian Watson chances because that's just me. I can't quit him. But for the most part, these weapons are too hit or miss for me to want anyone else on this offense other than Jordan Love and then arguably Josh Jacobs. We'll see where his price settles. Just like with James Cook, I want to see where this price settles because I might be priced out, although maybe not. It just depends. It just depends. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But as of right now, Jordan Love is the pocket passing version of Josh Allen and the only player you want really in Green Bay, except for arguably, of course, Josh Jacobs. And we talked about a few quarterbacks being the truth, and I just want to say Jaden Daniels is the truth. We already knew it. But 3,500 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, only 9 interceptions, and the 4th highest QBR as a rookie. He deserves his round of applause this week. Finished the year as well with 864 rush yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. Just an immaculate season from him. Will win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And for everyone that heeded my advice to trade Caleb Williams for Jaden Daniels and a cherry on top, I really hope you did it in Dynasty because that was the move of the offseason. And I really hope you did it. I know I did it for Drake May. I did Caleb Williams for Drake May and Josh Jacobs. I mean, think about that. I traded Caleb Williams for Drake May and Josh Jacobs. Woo! Woo, 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 woo. So listen to me next year when I give these crazy trade takes because trading, I think, is my bread and butter. My final season take. But then I've got some dynasty takes. I have so many takes today. Thank you for buckling up. I wanted to end this season strong. And yesterday, as mentioned at the top of the show, I started putting together this show sheet yesterday morning even. I was preparing to go live yesterday morning, but then I was like, well, I want to see Monday Night Football. I want to see Monday Night Football. I want to come in on Tuesday and celebrate with everyone and truly wrap up this season. And I wrote in my notes. In fact, I'm going to share my screen. I wrote in my notes at like 2 p.m. yesterday and highlighted manifesting a league winner JMO take. Highlighted it. Because as you guys know, I'm the president of the Jameson Williams fan club. And boy, did he do it. Oh my God. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 77 yards and a touchdown and a rushing touchdown. And if we remember last week, 143 yards and a touchdown. Jameson Williams is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. He's the truth. And I couldn't be happier about it. I could not be happier about it. Jameson Williams, despite his 2-game suspension, finished as the wide receiver 23, averaged 14.5 points per game on a team with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a stud. He's amazing. And Jameson Williams, you have my heart. Love him. God, I love him. So a final applause for Jameson Williams and his 2024 season. Oh, man. That felt so good. And hey, that's a good take, Rob. They are the opposite of the Packers. You want everyone. You just want everyone. Give me them all. Even Jamar Jefferson. Give them to me. So that is it for my season reactions. Stick around, though, as I still have some dynasty takes. These will be quick. And then we're going to crown the fantasy MVP. Is it Baker Mayfield? Is it Jaden Daniels? Is it Bucky Irving? Is it Chase Brown? Is it Brock Bowers? Who will it be? Finding out soon. But first, the dynasty takes. And these are for my sickos out there. For those of you that didn't win your championship or already ready to make some moves. These are some fun ones I thought of. There's plenty more out there. And next week, as you know, this is the last episode of this week. We'll be back next year for some, more fantasy stuff and dynasty stuff. And I'll give some more dynasty buys and stuff. But these are the ones I wanted to go ahead and mention real briefly. We're going to start a very, very sneaky and fun dynasty buy. Wide receiver 80 on Keep Trade Cut is Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson was a player super shined at the Senior Bowl, super shined at the Combine. Hyped him up a ton this offseason, but was unfortunately snake bitten by the injury bug. And I know I talked about earlier how disappointed I was in the Steelers and how mid they are, but still I believe that they lacked a wide receiver too. I mean, they were trying to use Van Jefferson in that role, Calvin Austin in that role. And Roman Wilson is a true wide receiver too. He was a stud at Michigan. And if you're looking for a player comp, it's Ladd McConkey. Roman Wilson and Ladd McConkey are the same size, run the same 40, and have the same exact skill set. And I really do think that Roman Wilson will fit perfectly in the Steelers offense going forward. And I want to buy him right now while he's at a discount. Wide receiver 80 on Keep Trade Cut. Get Roman Wilson while you can. And I know we talked about all these rookie quarterbacks being the truth. Caleb Williams is the truth too. I'm going to put my neck on the line. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say that Caleb Williams is the truth as well. QB 11 right now on Keep Trade Cut and falling. People are losing faith in Caleb Williams, and I just think it's going too far. Again, all offseason, I talked about how Caleb Williams was going to have a disappointing rookie season. I didn't trust the coaching staff, and we saw Caleb Williams struggle against top-tier opponents in college. So I recommended selling him before the year, but now I'm right back in on him because he does possess all the skills to be an elite fantasy quarterback. And this year wasn't too bad. He still finished 18th in pass yards, 33-93. Top half in the league in passing touchdowns as well with 19. And only 6 interceptions. So I really do think things will be fine for him. And I think a big part of that is Rome Odunze. Another player I'm 100% buying in Dynasty. I am going out on a limb this offseason and trading for my Bears. I'm getting Rome Odunze, wide receiver 18 on Keep Trade Cut right now. Finished the year with 716 yards and 3 touchdowns off of 52 receptions. He was also disappointing, but the Bears were just disappointing as a whole, and I think that they will get back on track. I'm damn sure buying Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze in Dynasty while I can. And I'm buying Marvin Harrison Jr. too, baby. Wide receiver 10 on Keep Trade Cut, and I just think it's ridiculous. 822 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's really not that bad for a rookie. We still have one more game. He can have 180 yards next week and get over 1,000, and everyone will just be like, okay, whatever, you know? But right now, he's cheap for the talent that he is, and I still believe in the Cardinals' offense. Kyler Murray, 3,600 yards and 17 touchdowns. I mean, we just need to get those touchdown numbers up, and we need a better offensive coordinator in Arizona. But as we talked about at the beginning of the show, this week, week 17, the season was lost, and they kind of just let the team sling it, and it worked. Kyler Murray had a great game. Trey McBride had a great game. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a great game. Even Michael Wilson was able to get involved. And so I want to invest in Marvin Harrison Jr. at a discount while I can. Buy Marvin Harrison Jr. Rob, if you're still in the chat, I hope you are. The Chargers are only getting started. This was another take. I was very excited about this offseason. Talked about how important coaching is. I am a true believer in the importance of coaching, and I'm a true Jim Harbaugh believer. I even talked about how I was going to be drafting Quentin Johnston because coaching matters. Jim Harbaugh is not going to make Quentin Johnston be Mike Williams. He's going to make him be Quentin Johnston. And Quentin Johnston's talented in his own way. And we saw it. Again, wasn't someone that you could rely on in seasonal formats, but in best ball, he was fantastic. But that's not where I want to go with this. Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey, they're the new Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. They are a match made in heaven. They are going to wreck fantasy leagues for years to come, and you can still get them at a discount. Ladd McConkey is going to be a lock for 100-plus targets every single season of his career. Justin Herbert is going to be a lock for nearly 4,000 yards, 500 pass attempts, and 20-something touchdowns or more every single year. This was just year one in his new system with a pretty bad offensive line and only Ladd McConkey. 3,500 yards, 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 264 rush yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns while playing through plantar fasciitis, however you pronounce it, some foot injury that he played through all year, and he still had these rushing yards. And I think his rush stats will go up next year as well. So Justin Herbert, another player that I recommended a lot this offseason because he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league and his fantasy value never matches that. And I just want to say these Chargers are only getting started. Buy them while you can. This AFC West is a shootout division, and the Chargers are a great team. They're only the beginning, and they are the new Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Next dynasty take. Demario Douglas is a sneaky buy. Wide receiver 63 on keep trade cut right now, and I talk about Drake May being the truth, and I talk about the Patriots getting a true alpha wide receiver number 1. That will unlock Demario Douglas as a wide receiver too. Unfortunately, it seems Jalen Polk can't play. Javon Baker can't play. Demario Douglas can play. He's proven it time and time again, and I know that this year the wide receivers in New England in particular have been very hit or miss, Demario Douglas included. But I still think he's kind of like the one that will translate his role into next season. And I want to try to buy him because I do think that the Patriots are going to be a little bit better next year. And I do think that a true alpha wide receiver 1 in New England will not only unlock Drake May a little bit more, unlock that wide receiver 1, but also Demario Douglas, who will have a little bit less coverage and be able to just be a little bit more creative and utilize a little bit more properly. So that is a sneaky buy to me. I already talked about this one take, but again, I'm very curious what the Raiders are going to do at quarterback this year. Seems like my take was answered for me during the show. It's Sam Darnold. But I do just want to say briefly that this will not affect Brock Bowers. He's QB proof. He's a true stud. I'm honestly fine paying the tight end 1 price tag for Brock Bowers. Rondale Moore, true dumpster dive candidate. But I wrote this down while watching the Falcons game. And I kind of like the identity thing with all these teams that I've talked about today. The Falcons receivers don't match Michael Penix, if that makes any sense. Because if you look at where Michael Penix had success, in Washington, his receivers were shifty. Rome Odunze, an excellent route runner. Jalen Polk, a pretty solid route runner. Jalen McMillan, a really good route runner. But then you look at the Falcons and it's like Drake London, a clasher. Kyle Pitts, not shifty at all. Darnell Mooney, mostly just a field stretcher. And then Ray McLeod. And I know that Rondale Moore hasn't really done anything, but at a wide receiver 103 price tag, I'm going to say he's a dumpster dive candidate. I mean, because the wide receiver success that we've seen on Michael Penix are these shifty players that just kind of find themselves in the open field, and Penix is able to sling it to them. So I know that Rondale Moore missed all of this season and is actually a free agent after this year, but I think because of that, he will re-sign with the Falcons, probably take on that Ray McLeod role, be a lock for like 60 to 70 targets next year, and be fine. So I want everyone to remember this, that I said Rondale Moore on December 31st, 2024. And lastly, my final dynasty take before crowning the 2024 Fantasy MVP. Do not forget about this year's rookie running backs that didn't hit. Let Zach Charbonnet, let Tank Bigsby, let Kendre Miller, let Chase Brown all be important lessons to you. Because Blake Corum, Kamani Vidal, Jalen Wright, Trey Benson, these guys are still very talented running backs in good situations. It just didn't line up this season. But if you are to tell me that Blake Corum's a league winner next year, I would not be surprised. If Kamani Vidal ends up a league winner next year, I would not be surprised. Same for Jalen Wright. Same for Trey Benson. Same for arguably Jonathan Brooks. These players have potential. They didn't hit this year. But again, let Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, Kendre Miller, Chase Brown all be important reminders to you that sometimes running backs just hit in year 2 or year 3 for that matter. So don't give up on these guys yet. Keep them on your bench, or better yet, buy them. And so we're here. The longest Wake and Take episode in history. Nearly 2 hours. Incredible work. And we're here ready to crown the 2024 Fantasy MVP. This has been teased all episode. And in fact, it's already published on our YouTube Shorts and on TikTok and Instagram Reels. We've got some candidates. Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Brock Bowers, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Kyle Pitts. Just kidding. Kyle Pitts, awful. But none of those players, to me at least, compare to what Brian Thomas Jr. put on the field. Heading into this season, he was the wide receiver 48 consensus wide receiver on Fantasy Pros. His underdog ADP, it did rise throughout the offseason, but it ended at wide receiver 38. Cheap price tag. But finished as the wide receiver 4. Finished with over 1,000 receiving yards. Finished with double-digit touchdowns. And most importantly, down the stretch, came up huge. 32 points in the quarterfinals, 28 points in the semifinals, and 24 points in the fantasy championship. And to make matters better, right, he did all this with Mac McCorkle Jones as his quarterback. Not only quarterback proof, but just a true stud. And at his cost, I think he was the true league winner, finishing as a top 5 wide receiver as a rookie with Mac Jones as his quarterback on the putrid Jacksonville Jaguars. If you had Brian Thomas Jr., you probably won your league. So shout out Brian Thomas Jr. Cheers. And ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for the 2024 fantasy football season. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, you guys tuned in. You listened to me yap for countless hours this season. And I know I've said this a million times, but you guys are amazing. I am so grateful to you, the audience, to Player Profiler for giving me the platform, to everyone, really, for making this such a great season, Dustin for producing the show. Seriously, cannot get over how happy I am with the product I was able to put together, and for you guys to tune in and still listen to me all season long. It means so much to me. So I really hope you all did win your championships, or at least enjoyed this season. And I hope you're ready to dominate the 2025 season as we come back for Wake and Take next year. Everyone, have a wonderful week, a wonderful rest of your day. Happy New Year. Congratulations. We'll see you next time. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.